It's time for an update on the Big 6. It's January, not quite 50, so I got a jacket today, but it's going to hit 50 yet again. Quite a number of years ago, I did an update of when I got new tires. They're still pretty new. A lot of brake dust there, but I don't worry about that in the winter, which it is. So I'll clean those in the spring. These are Yokohama tires. They are the Avid Ascend GT, I believe. Plenty of meat on them. Plenty of meat. They're perfectly fine. Gonna end up getting rid of them due to dry rotting, because I really don't drive much anymore, because I just don't need to. So that's good in a way. There are some micro cracks in between the treads on it, but otherwise they're perfectly fine for a while. There's really no new dings or anything on the car to speak of. It's just here, it's just a car, nothing special. That looks like dirt, but it's not. Apparently I bought the car with that there. We're thinking that was bird shit that was left on there, and it can be corrosive, and that bird took I guess an XJ81X dump. So it just is. Nothing I can do about that. I bought the car with this dent over here, whatever it is. The ding that's here was from a shopping cart at Tiny Middle. There was nothing I could do to stop it. I couldn't get there in time, and that was the one last parting gift I got from there. This rear light had a crack in it when I bought the car. Apparently the owner did that, said his whiff backed this out and the snowblower was out there, and that was from the handle on the snowblower. Definitely seems reasonable. That's all the damage it caused. Hasn't leaked. There hasn't been water in there. It's been perfectly fine. I also got a little ding on the mirror, and that was partially my fault. It could have been a lot worse. I didn't hit anything, of course. My failure point was parking on a corner. You never, ever park on a corner. It seemed like it was a safe enough bet at the time. It's not, because people don't know how to drive. And what happened was, I came back to the car, and not only was that ding there, and some scuffs on here, which I was able to sort of buff out, and there's nothing there to really speak of, but the mirror was like this. It had fallen down like that, and that is because these are heated mirrors, and there are clips that hold it in, and it's hinged at the bottom somewhere around here. So the force of whoever hit this somehow jostled it out of those clips, and it fell down. And I didn't realize that there were clips there. I thought it was broken at the time, but then after looking at it, I just flipped the mirror back up, and I would just kind of leave it there. But like I said, I didn't know there were clips at the time, so then it would fall down, and it was a big pain in the ass, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I took a good look at it, and there were just clips there, and I just took the mirror and just pop, and it popped right back in. It's perfectly fine. So I ended up with a little tiny ding there. Small price to pay. It is what it is. I have a small chip on the windshield. Very hard to see and can't really get a shot out of it. Right there is a little mark. It's hidden behind the mirror, so it doesn't bother me. It hasn't spread, so that's okay. And I also, unfortunately, have a scratch on it. Also really hard to see. Right here to about there, there's a scratch and like a scuff. No idea how, where, when. Obviously it was with the wipers, but I am rarely out with this car to begin with, not to mention when it rains or snows, but yet shit happens. Inside the car, maybe a little dirty. Seat has not cracked any further than it was when I got it. This, except for maybe that, I'm not sure, but it's just age is all it is. Otherwise, everything is in very nice shape still. Steering wheel is in fine shape. Everything's good. There's a little wear on the wheel in certain spots just from people driving it. I'll show you up here because I didn't realize the camera was down there. Steering wheel, like I said, is fine. A little wear here and here just from people driving it. That's really it. This was like this when I bought it. This was rippled when I bought it, and this was sort of separating from the rest of the door. I guess cheap adhesive they used, or the foam is just breaking down, I don't know. But I have seen other Toyotas with the ripple here, because you put your arm there when the windows are down. And that is one unfortunate thing about this car, is the interior quality in terms of dashboard and panels and stuff like that could have been better. Opening up the power barn. The shocks still work. They're not as good as they were new. There's an engine in here. Ain't nothing wrong. It's dirty. Oh well. Just is. Typical aluminum corrosion, but it's not ever going to amount to anything. It just is, once again. Everything on the car works 100% perfectly like the day it was new. Does it run the same as when it had, 20 miles on it? Certainly not. No engine does. But it still runs great, and we're going to do a startup sometime later on. It's currently got about 82,000 miles on it, something. I can't remember precisely. We'll check it out in a bit. It's otherwise perfectly fine. There have been some repairs that have needed to be done, as you would get with any car. I put tires on it, but that's maintenance. I put brakes on it, but that's maintenance. And I had to get the... Oh, right. Yeah, nothing ever did go wrong with it. 7 years I've owned it now. Not a stitch of fucking trouble with it. That is why you buy the T. That is why you buy the T. And not some rust bucket that has so much rust on it that it probably doesn't even track straight going down the road and sways everywhere. But we won't talk about Abraham 23, at least in this sentence. It says little trees, but that's a big one. Yeah, this happened completely by accident. We were in a store that we don't normally frequent, and just happening to find it along the road in our travels, and stopped in, and they had these, and I don't know, the planets aligned right, and that was that. Let's see how many miles we have. I gotta shut the radio here. There we are. 83,218. Let me go back around. 17.3 miles to the gallon. Doesn't sound very good. And it's not very good. But there's also a great reason for it. I don't go anywhere. And when I go places, it's typically within, I don't know, 5 to 10 miles, and it's stop and go in town. It barely ever sees the parkway or goes anywhere or does anything. It just sits here, and that's it. Do have a tire pressure monitoring system's light on. I do have a bad wheel sensor. That you can't really blame on the car based on the age of it being a 2007, because the batteries in them go dead, and I just haven't gotten it replaced. It just isn't a big deal, and I just check the tire pressure periodically, and that's all. Will I get it replaced one day? Maybe, but they're like 90, 95 bucks now to get replaced. So that's really it. Radio, climate control. It's got everything you would need. It's got a clock. Yeah, I put the dash cam in. Yep. It's got a compass. That came with the car too. Yep, just a plain old boring Camry. Nothing to speak of. No repairs to do. Press the button and it starts up and it goes. First fill up was October 26, 2015. 59,500 miles. Look at the price of gas then, $2.12. And it was even down into the dollar range for a little bit. And now we're up to, I don't know, let's flip through a little bit, but I'll show you something else just to show you how much mileage I actually put on here. Last fill up, that's down to 303. I think it's up a little bit, but look at that, 474.9. Last fill up was last year. 12/21/2022, 83,000 miles. And it was 303.9. But look at the fill up before that. September, August, because I took a trip to Sharkey. Before that, June, March, January. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks in a year. 6, actually, if you count the last one, which is still going. So that's about all I put in it. That's why you keep a log. This way you can look at that stuff. Sun visor, I did need to replace because the hinge mechanism here, it would stay down like about, where are you? About like that at all times. And if you put it up, it would just flop back down to there. This one over here is still holding together, but you can see all the little dents in it from the foam inside disintegrating. So that was one thing they didn't do right on this car. And as far as the interior parts go, it's mainly the dashboard that was the problem. It's still here, it's still intact, but it is showing its age, and I'll get into that right now. The dashboards on these cars, 2007, 8, 9, somewhere in there, melt. That's the word they use on the interwebs. That's, of course, erroneous. They become shiny and sticky, but it depends on the weather. This one, unfortunately, has also started to crack, which I'm not thrilled about. You can see the crack right in the corner of the vent, and that runs all the way up to there. And there are even new cracks that have started, which I'm also not thrilled about, which are here and here, like that. That's minor stuff. The bigger problem is the material that they used to make this in the hot weather gets very, very, very soft. I once got in the car like this. I kind of reached in with this hand, and for whatever reason, this finger happened to be extended, and the nail dug right in and left a gouge. And you can see other times where it's happened as well. Unfortunately, it's just not made out of the right material. They didn't formulate it correctly, and I just have to live with it. So nothing touches this dashboard. It stays, you know, as pristine as possible. Dusting it off is sometimes even problematic, especially in the warm weather, because things stick to it, because it kind of gets a little sticky. But again, it just is. Remember, this is 2007, which is 16 years ago. A lot was different 16 years ago. Of course, old Clanky never had a split or a crack in the dash. It was in fine shape. The Whiff's car was a 2000, and that also had no cracks. I think it had like a bubble in it in one place. You'd have to see the old videos of that. But otherwise, everything is perfectly intact. Sound system is great. The AC works fine. On hot days, I think it could probably use a little bit of a recharge, but it's certainly acceptable. unless I'm stuck in traffic. That's a problem that has plagued Toyota since at least 2002 that I know of, because the compressor just doesn't get enough RPM and idle. So if you're stuck in traffic, you can forget it. There's pretty much no AC, and it gets pretty uncomfortable pretty quick. Heat works great. Defrosters work great. Everything works great. Transmission shifts great. The car runs great. There's nothing to talk about. It's just a car. But it is the V6. Now, this is not a very popular option. And the reason why is very simple. When somebody buys a Camry, they buy it for the reliability and for the gas mileage. A 4-cylinder engine is going to get better gas mileage than a 6. That's just fact of the matter and how it goes. The way I see it, I won't own another 4-cylinder unless it has a very proven track record like the Windshield 2000 Camry. That engine could run forever. In 2002, with Old Clanky, that was a new engine design, and Toyota's heart was in the right place, but they made some mistakes building that engine, and that engine continued on to this very model year and beyond, in fact. But in 07, they tried to increase the gas mileage even further, and they turned into oil burners, and real bad oil burners, and there's not as many as there otherwise would have been on the road because of that. They are still around. You can find them. The distinguishing characteristic, since it does not have a V6 badge, is the dual tailpipe on the 07, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11. And this has dual tailpipes, so that way you know it's a 6, but it's not true dual because they kind of come together under the car into one pipe, go back to the end of the car, and then split off again. So it's not true dual exhaust, but you do get a little bit nicer sound. Of course, that also means you have 2 mufflers, so when one rots out, the other one isn't far behind, and that's twice the repair bills. V6s and V8s cost more to repair than 4-cylinder engines. You gotta pay to play. Like I said, these are not very common. They're not unheard of by any means, but they're not as common because, like I said, people buy these things for their reliability and their gas mileage. They don't think of a Camry as a Lexus where you want a nice, smooth engine. I think of this as my Lexus because this is about the closest I'll ever come to one. And it's been absolutely fantastic. It has a timing chain. There's no belt to ever worry about. There is the possibility of VVTi valves causing noise upon startup. It really does not exhibit any sort of issue. It makes other sounds when it starts up. It's got a squealing belt which goes away once the engine is warmed up, and the belt is otherwise in fine shape. So I can live with the noise because I just have the windows rolled up and I don't hear it. And even with them rolled down, I really don't hear it unless I'm parked next to a car or at a traffic light. And by the time the engine's warmed up, it doesn't make noise anymore, so it doesn't pay to fix it or replace it because there is nothing wrong. So chances are very good that this car is going to be around for some time to come because it barely gets any mileage on it. If I put 20 miles a week on it, that's a lot. It really does not get much mileage. But I think it's high time that we go ahead and start it up. Let me move the camera in a little closer and we'll fire it up. That was eventful. Sounded a little funny starting up, but it is cold out, so I think it just kind of cranks slow on that first go. You might hear the squealy belt. And what do you also hear? A lot of valve train noise. We'll let it idle down for a second here, just smooth out. Wait till the cars go by and we'll talk about that. So now you can hear it pretty good. You hear the squealy belt. Might be a pulley that's squealing, I don't know, but like I said, it goes away. It doesn't cause any problems, so it's fine. And you hear a lot of rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat going on. That is known as the 2GR-FE V6 engine from Toyota. They all sound like that when they get some mileage on them. It means nothing. That's just how they run. Proof is not only what I just showed you, but XJoe81X, who owned also an 07 with the V6, sounded exactly like that, now owns a 2010 V6, and it sounds exactly like that. That's just how they run. It's nice. There's nothing wrong with it. When it warms up a bit, the rattly-tattly going on tends to smooth out and go away. But otherwise it just runs 1000% perfect. Occasionally I'll hook up the scan tool and check the air-fuel ratios and stuff like that. Damn near at 0%. Of course, you always check that once it's warmed up, never when it's cold, because it's going to be all over the map. And yeah, it's pretty damn close to 0%, maybe 1.6, 2.5, something like that. And then it evens out the other way. So it just makes minor corrections. Common issue is the power steering. Let's come back over here. It leaks a little bit. It seeps out through the hoses. This does not affect all of them, but it affected all the ones I've ever owned, where this hose is a little wet right there. It's such a slow leak that I have to put power steering fluid in, I think once in 7 years, just to top it up a little bit. It wasn't even low. I think that's a pretty damn good track record. Coolant overflow is not just a little bit in the bottom of it. You can't see it with the camera, and it's hard to point it down in there. It's always been there. It hasn't gone any lower, and of course it will go a little higher as everything heats up, so it stays exactly where it's supposed to be. Maybe it's not quite up to the level, but it's not causing any problems, so I leave well enough alone. Now that we've been running for a little bit, the squeakity has lessened quite a bit, and it's running quite a bit smoother yet still. But as you drive, you'll still kind of hear that rattly-tattly a little bit until it's fully up to temperature. And again, that's just how they run. Nothing to hear back here. It's dead silent. Just a plain old boring Camry. Yeah. Yep, plain old boring Camry. Pontiac, when they were around, used to build cars, and their slogan was, "We build excitement." Okay, they didn't tell you what that excitement was, but you found out in the repair shop real quick now, didn't you? Yep, along with your Buicks and your Chevys and all your other GMs, Oldsmobiles, and all that kind of great stuff. Yep, you found out real quick what that excitement Pontiac was talking about. You'll be real excited to see those big repair bills as everything breaks. And here we are, 7 years, about 25,000 miles, and my total outlay in money for this car, not counting brakes or tires, was about 75 bucks for the sun visor, and I did do one real cylinder when I bought it, which was 75 bucks then, so $150 repair in 7 years. that's about 20 bucks a year. I think we can all handle that. That is why you buy the tea. The big tea. The big bubbly tea. Although I think that's a different ethnicity. Yeah, it's been a great car. It will continue to be a great car. I love it when I drive it. I get that Pontiac excitement when I put the pedal to the metal. And I guarantee you that most of those Pontiacs out there didn't provide anywhere near that kind of excitement when you did the same. I've changed all the lights out on this car to LED, except for the ones you see, the daytime running lights. And that's because of the way Toyota designed it, where it runs these lights at about 8 volts or so, and that is not enough for the LEDs. They flicker and strobe at a very, very high rate of speed, and it's blinding to look at. The headlights, I actually lied, are actually HIDs that China sent me. The fog lights are LED, and everything else has been changed over to LED, except for the glove box light and the 2 mirror vanity lights. But everything else has been changed over. So the glove box light and vanity lights for the mirrors and these daytime running lights have not been. These will not be changed because I really can't, unless there's some sort of adapter that somebody made for it, but I haven't really seen one yet. And even then, meh. So what you're hearing now is pretty much what they run like when they're warmed up. We'll wait till this car goes by with loud music as well. That's just how they run. So this has been a 7-year update of my 2007 Toyota Camry V6 XLE, known as the Big 6. What a boring video. I gotta now get in this heap and go drive it somewhere, because I didn't start it up for nothing. Jeez Louise, what a boring car. God. Well, I'll tell you, at my age, I don't need the Pontiac excitement. Anyway, that's going to wrap this one up. Thanks so much for watching. I hope all of you who have your Big 6s out there, and I know there's a couple of you, love them just as much and have had similar luck with them, and I'm sure you have. Let me know down in the comments how many miles you got, what's going on, all that kind of great stuff. Thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe, and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.